Welcome back to Made for More. I am your host, Holly J. Moore. I am a divorce lawyer who is passionate and on a mission to help all of us use the most difficult things in our life to do something more with, because you're made for more. I am joined today by my producer, Aaron Bender, who is laughing because he's like, what the heck was that intro?
So many mores. Yes, it's great. We're
Yes.
joined today by Pete Bombaci, founder and CEO of GenWell, talking all about human connection. He's based in Canada, so that's going to be exciting to talk about. But that was terrible. It's a terrible accent. It's so bad. I'm curious, though, when we talk about human connection, I feel like there are so many more ways now to connect, but yet we feel so disconnected. I'm wondering your take. Counselor.
Oh, yes. Well, I mean, clearly we're more disconnected than ever. We're feeling more isolated than ever. When you say there's so many more ways to be connected, you're like referring to technology.
Yeah, technology, and I feel like, I mean, we could FaceTime anybody around the world like we're in the Jetsons or something like that, and yet we don't know our neighbors.
Yeah. Well, why do you think that is?
I'm asking you, host of Made for More with Holly J. Moore.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like everybody is so busy, too busy. I don't know. I don't know. I guess that's what we'll ask the guest about.
This went perfectly.
We are joined today by Pete Bombaci, founder and CEO of GenWell. Pete, welcome to the show.
Holly, it is great to be here. Thanks for making the time.
Absolutely. So what is GenWell? Let's start there.
Well, GenWell is a human connection movement, and our mission is to make the world a happier and healthier place by educating, empowering, and catalyzing people around the importance of face-to-face social connection as a proactive step that we can all take for our health, our happiness, our longevity, and for the betterment of society.
How did you get into the business of humans connecting?
Yeah, it's a really interesting story, Holly. There was a blackout on the eastern seaboard of North America back in 2003. And, we can all relate to this, whether it's unfortunately fires or flooding or any catastrophic weather event. We as human beings, we are an amazing species during times of crisis. And that day, when there was a blackout on the eastern seaboard, I actually went over to a friend's house, and it turned a backyard barbecue went from 2 to 5 to 10 to 20 people, and everybody was having an incredible time. At 9 o'clock at night, I walked out on the front porch. The street, I lived on a very busy thoroughfare at the time, so I only knew the neighbors on either side of my house. So I looked at this street and I thought, oh my God, I wish I lived on a street like this. I walked out on the street and I said that to them. I wish I lived on a street where everybody knew each other. And they all looked at me and said, we don't. And I thought to myself, isn't that crazy? You guys actually look like you like each other and you'd actually enjoy spending time together. And then over the course of the next, 6 months, I heard story after story of people who came together with people that they lived beside, worked beside, went to school beside, whether it was an industrial park or a tall corporate building, people made the time to connect. And I thought to myself, well, that's crazy. How come it takes a crisis for us to actually talk to the people around us? And then, really, over the next decade, I did a little bit of research. I spent some time in the mental health community, understanding what it was all about. And I recognized that the research has long told us that we all need each other. And right now, I think we need each other more than ever before. So that was the inspiration.
Wow. So do you think you said we need each other more than ever before, but is it because we are less connected than ever before?
Well, I think most of us would probably agree with it, that we are less connected than ever before. And research, Dr. Robert Putnam out of Harvard, as part of Bowling Alone, a quintessential book that really kicked off this conversation in the mid '90s, highlights that we're increasingly disconnected since about the mid 1960s.
Oh.
And so many things have led to that, whether it's bowling leagues or less church or less social clubs and many other things that we used to be a part of. And then you throw in the advent of technology at the end of the 90s, and it's death by or disconnection by a thousand cuts.
Yeah.
And I think it took the pandemic for us to really feel it, because we went through the motions before the pandemic. We went to the office, we went to the gym, we went to the grocery store, but were we really making the time to build the healthy connection habits that help us thrive as individuals and as communities and a society?
Right. So that's interesting because I would have thought the disconnection happened or started occurring much later than the 60s. I mean, I wasn't alive in the 60s, but you
Mhm.
know, from what I see on the movies, it seemed like everybody was loving and connected in the 60s. Um,
Well, isn't that the case? Like we can all look back at the movies and see what they say, but the reality is, bit by bit,
right.
we've lived in the greatest growth era in the history of the world, and we haven't really wanted for everything for much because we haven't lived through a war on this side of the planet. And therefore, maybe we got a little carried away with living the best lives without thinking about the impact that, having human connections in our life would have on us.
Right. So, what is the impact of feeling sort of disconnected or isolated?
Well, it's a really great question because, loneliness in itself is not a crisis. It's not a mental health issue. And frankly, it's no different than being thirsty or hungry. It's a signal from the body and the brain to say, I need some human connection.
Hmm.
And so part of the struggle I think that we have, the crisis of loneliness, I believe, is actually that most of us don't actually understand what loneliness is, what causes it, or what we can do to solve for it. Because if we actually solve for it in that moment, when we first feel that sense of disconnection, when we understand that we can build those connections through strangers or knowing our neighbors or classmates, colleagues, family, or friends, the opportunity to connect are all around us.
Hmm.
It's just whether we choose to reach out and be a part of that solution. Of course, there's a small percentage of the population who might struggle to do that. But if we awaken the entire population, maybe somebody who doesn't struggle with that connection can actually help those people that don't have that, that comfort in actually reaching out and building those human connections into their life.
Right. Um, you know, as you're talking, I'm thinking about, is this are we how do I want to say this? I feel like as the generations go on, we're sort of like it's being living more isolated is like ingrained in their DNA. So this is why I'm saying this. This is what I'm thinking of is like, my parents, if somebody comes to the door or if somebody calls them and they don't know who it is, I mean, they pick up that phone so fast. Hello, may I ask who's calling? And it's like me, I'll look at the phone to see if I know them and decide if I want to answer. But my kids, they will never pick up the phone. If somebody comes to my door, I'm like, like my parents, hello, come on in. Like we've never met, but would you like some coffee, tea, a cocktail? I'm a little
Yeah.
bit less likely. And like my kids are like hiding while the DoorDash guy's at the door and they will
Mm.
only emerge once the coast is clear. So can you talk a little bit about the generational sort of effect of this?
Well, I think, again, the analogy I like to use is when we don't go to the gym for a couple of years, it doesn't feel so good when we go back to the gym. I really do believe that the pandemic really was the starting point for us to recognize what had, the frog in the boiling pot of water. Bit by bit, we were increasingly disconnected from each other. But then during the pandemic, when we had people ripped from our lives and we didn't have that opportunity to connect with each other, it started to be real. And when we
Right.
don't go to the gym for a couple of years, going back to the gym really sucks.
Yes, it
And,
hurts.
so for those of us that, haven't seen people for a couple of years during the pandemic, and let's remember, we didn't just snap back. I know that we heard this thing, oh,
Right.
we'll just snap back when this is over. We need to recognize that people are all along the spectrum. Some people are still very socially anxious, and there's others they're ready to jump back into the mass party in the moss pit or wherever they might do it, but we need to recognize that everybody's along the spectrum here. So as we try to help people through this, we need to understand that some people don't need any help. Some people need lots of help, but actually the starting point, I believe, Holly, is that none of us have ever been educated on this. We've
Hmm.
told people for 50 years that they should exercise, eat well, 8 glasses of water, 8 hours of sleep, don't drink too much, and don't smoke, but
Yeah.
we have never educated people on just how important social connection and social health is. And now we're recognizing that it has as much, if not a greater impact on our health and well-being and on the society in which we live than all those other things. And I think education is really the starting point to help people get reconnected.
That is a great point. I mean, we never learned in school anything about being lonely or being, feeling isolated. So what are the next steps? How do we start connecting with people or connecting more, being more intentional? What do we do?
Well, I think, again, our approach is always built on a behavior change. So that's educate, empower, and catalyze at GenWell. The starting point is we need people to understand the truth about human connection. We need to understand the negative consequences so that people are motivated. So when we have chronic or persistent loneliness, it increases our risk of heart disease, mental health issues, anxiety and depression, dementia, diabetes, suicide, addiction, obesity. Most of us actually think that it's not that big of a deal. We called it a soft skill for 30, 40, 50 years. We need people to understand not only are the negative consequences there, but on the positive side, the 85-year study out of Harvard says it's the single greatest contributor to happiness in our life, but it reduces anxiety and depression. It increases empathy and compassion, strengthens resilience. Like there's so many benefits that, again, when we don't understand why people might be encouraging us to connect, that has to be the starting point. But in addition to that, Holly, I think it's really understanding where are these connections. We've told people for 50 years not to talk to strangers. And yet the research shows that this is Canadian research, that those who talk to strangers just once a week are up to 3 times happier than those that don't talk to strangers. And it's almost 100% of the time when we talk to a stranger that both people are happy that it happened.
Hmm.
And yet we've been telling people not to do it. The research also tells us it increases trust, happiness, optimism, safety, security, sense of inclusion, belonging, community. All the things that I think we crave as human beings come when we actually create these little interactions throughout the course of our day. But
Yeah.
there's talking to neighbors, talking to your colleagues, classmates, obviously friends and family. All around us are the opportunities to connect, but we need to actually start leaning into those connections because we recognize how important they are for my health and you as well, Holly.
Right. So we did an episode a few weeks ago on female friendship. And she had a lot of like similar data to show just like how important and how critical to our physical and mental health that connecting with a friend is. And but from my perspective, I kind of feel like I'm in a season of life that is just incredibly busy. And so if I think about the connections in my life and I would really love to connect with, this or that person more, or I would like to carve out time. I would like to not always be rushing around so that if the opportunity to presented itself to talk to a stranger, I would actually have an extra 60 seconds to do that, but it doesn't feel like it a lot of times. So what do you say to people where it's like, yes, I want to connect. I want to have all those positive effects, but I just feel like there's no room in my life for that.
You are a busy lady, Holly. I understand that. But let me ask you this question, Holly. Do you go to the gym?
I do. Well, I work out at home, but yes, I go to the gym in
Yeah.
my home. Yes.
Do you try to eat healthy?
Yes.
Do you try to get 8 hours of sleep?
Yes.
Why do you do all that stuff, Holly? I'm curious.
Because I guess because I've been told that's what I should do.
So
mm,
what you're telling me that if we actually help you understand the why, and let's recognize that's been 50 years that we've been beating that into people to say
yeah.
you should exercise, you should drink 8 glasses of water, you should eat well, you should get 8 hours of sleep. Is it any surprise that people may struggle? We're built on a behavior change model. And funny enough, we have a diagram that we use, which basically says the starting point for many people is, what are you talking about? Why would this be? How come nobody's ever told me this before? So a lot of people will question this. So we won't turn this around overnight.
Right.
It's going to take time for people to start integrating this into their everyday life, recognizing that for all the reasons that you're eating, sleeping, water, this may actually have a greater impact than all those things. But once I can get Holly to believe it, then Holly might buy into it. So that same time when you're blocking in going to the gym and you don't miss it, except, maybe you're in the
Yeah.
midst of something, a crisis in your life. But other than that, like we go to the gym because I
Right.
said I was going to the gym. Well, that's where we need to get to with social
Mm.
connection. And then the flip side on that, the only one other thing I'll say, Holly, is obviously digital distraction has become a major player in our lives.
Right.
And so one of the things we do is on the first day of every month, we have digital detox days. This
Mm.
isn't going to be a snap change either. We're all battling digital distraction. And so the first of every month, we have 3 tips on how people can steal back, whether it's 10 minutes or 20 minutes or 30 minutes, because if we can all be more conscious about what time we're spending there and more intentional about the importance of connection, then maybe we can trade off just a little bit more this week or this month than we did the month before.
Right. So that brings up a good question. Is there hope for us? Can we turn this around, or are we just on a downhill,
No,
slope?
we are done, Holly. It is over. We should just pack the bags, close the door, and
Just,
let's get out of here.
yeah, throw in the towel.
Hey, Holly, I do ask myself that once in a while. I've been leading this movement for 9 years. And I'll tell
Mm.
you that for the first 7 years, people would laugh me out of a room. People would look at me like I was crazy.
Hmm.
But, one thing I think I've been told, and I don't know where from, I don't know if it was my parents or, at the end of the day, I got two options every day. I can wake up and, you know, be upset and get angry and, focus on the problem, or I can wake up with a positive attitude and say, look, even if we are done,
Yeah.
I'm not willing to give up and I want to help as many people and I want to be happier and healthier every day that I live.
Right.
And so I don't know the answer. None of us know what the future holds. But what I do know is that when I talk to you right now, I'm not thinking about my phone. I'm not engaged in other things. I'm loving a conversation about something that I'm interested in and passionate in.
Right.
And if we can help people build more of these interactions into their lives each and every day, I believe not only can we change individuals, but we can change the world.
Hmm. Beautiful. Well, speaking of things that you're passionate about, I understand that Movember is something that is, near and dear to you. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I used to run Movember Canada up here in the little national park that you guys have north of your border, and yeah, it was an amazing journey. 5 years raising the collective consciousness around the importance of men's health, and it is actually part of the inspiration behind what I do today because, when we were running the movement, the one thing we focused on in the area that I was responsible for was building human connection and
Hmm.
recognizing that when we give people a purpose, most people are willing to step up and be a part of the solution because they recognize that it's not just about me, but it's about you. And
Yeah,
when it comes to human connection, that's the real secret. It's almost like, again, volunteering is no different. We all sell ourselves that volunteering is about helping other people, when actually the dirty little secret might be that you get more out of it than the person that you're helping.
definitely.
And
Yeah.
so the power of human connection is that the research is very clear on this. When I talk to you, if we're strangers on the street or building a connection with somebody, when we do it consciously and intentionally and recognize the impact that I might have on you, then I actually really benefit as well. So that's the real secret recipe behind all of this work.
Right. Okay, now for the burningest of burning questions. How many additional mustaches do you think happened because of Movember? Where like somebody grew a mustache, I'll tell you why I'm asking this in a second. Somebody grew a mustache for Movember and then never got rid of it.
That's a good question. I think it's a challenge that the movement faces today because facial hair has almost become the norm now. Is how do
Yeah.
you stand out as a difference? What I think was really interesting during Movember was when it first started, there was probably twice as many people who grew the mustache that actually registered and participated in the campaign.
Okay. Yeah.
And I think what it was is really, again, another example of people want a conversation piece. And
Right.
that's what the mustache was on their face. It's why we have swag like our Human Connection t-shirts or our
Yes.
GenWell hats or buttons or stickers, is because it is the conduit to a conversation. Hey, what's that t-shirt all about? Hey,
Hmm.
why are you wearing that button that says human connector? What does that mean? And
Yeah.
most of us, I think this is an interesting conversation, which is oftentimes from the end of the pandemic, many people have said, "Oh, I'd rather stay home today. I'm more of an introvert now." Well, the natural inclination for most human beings is to seek the path of least resistance.
Hmm.
So, yes, I can stay at home in my pajamas and do my work. But when you start to understand the importance of human connection, we need to get out there. And if we're feeling a little shyer than we normally are, most people aren't introverted. They're struggling just to make that initial connection. Because once I start talking to you, hey,
Yeah.
I know that you're accepting of me, I'm accepting of you, and we can have a great dialogue.
Right. I never knew that the mustache, but it makes so much sense. The mustache is actually sort of an entry point into a conversation. Um, that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Okay, the reason why I asked you the question of how many more mustaches were created was because my husband grew a mustache for Movember, I don't know how many years ago. And the first year he shaved it off. And then the second year he grew it and it's still there. It has never come off. And it's not just any mustache. I mean, it's a mustache. And everywhere he goes, people talk to him about it. Like
I
people,
love
hey
it.
man, nice stash. And so that makes so much sense that it's actually a point of connection. I never knew that or thought about it in that way.
Well, I can tell you, I love collecting baseball caps. I'm
Mm,
a passionate hockey fan, so
yeah.
I collect all the old logo baseball caps because I don't rock a mustache. And so, to me, when I put on a baseball cap or
Yes.
with a hockey logo or something unique, it always strikes up conversations.
So
I was in
true.
Australia with a Texas Longhorn hat on, and somebody said "hook 'em horns," and I was like, "Hey, how cool is that?" And all of a
Yes.
sudden we started up a conversation. And
Mm.
so, anytime we can help people into that conversation, we're actually helping people live happier and healthier.
I love that. That is so cool. So, okay, if you could give one tip for somebody to make a connection today, what would it be?
Really do believe talking to strangers is the starting point for everybody. It's like
Mm.
it's dipping your toe in, say hello to somebody. I don't mean you have to have a 20-minute conversation with somebody you've never met before, but at the very least, smile at them, nod at them, say hello, good morning. And what the research has shown, Holly, is that at the worst case, somebody will not respond. And that's not a reflection of you. That means they're probably in their own head. They probably got meetings they're rushing to. You talked about being really busy, and
Yes.
so we could all be caught up. And when somebody says something in one of those, you kind of look back like, oh my God, did you say something to
Right. Oh,
me?
shoot.
Sorry, I
Were you
missed that.
talking to me?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And so when we understand the science around human connection, when we recognize that we are a social species, we need each other, hopefully people will understand that, hey, it's not that risky to talk to strangers. And let me be clear, I'm not talking about 2 o'clock in the morning in a dark alley after a bunch of drinks. I'm talking about at the grocery store or the gym or the neighbor 5 doors up that you've never spoken to. There's and kids in classrooms, and you got a whole school, you don't know all the other kids. We need to recognize we all thrive when we're connected. And so this little interaction of people that we've not, maybe we've seen them but we didn't talk to them, these little interactions can make all the difference in the world.
I love it. It's something so small but yet so significant. Well, Pete,
Absolutely.
thank you so much for being on the show and thank you for the work that you do.
Thank you, Holly. Great for the conversation. Thanks for the conversation and great questions. And I hope you can take this information and incorporate it into your world.
I'm going to try to talk to a stranger today.
I love that.
I've got just a little bit more to say. And when I mean little because you heard him. You heard Pete. Talk to a stranger today because you were made for more.
That's it.
That's it.
That's it. That's it.
Yes.
Just a little more.
You want more? I got more. Actually, I have I have a whole lot more. If you guys want more, I'll give you more. Okay. So, Aaron's like, "Oh God, what did I do? I wanted to get out of here." Something that I didn't talk with Pete about, but that was in my head, but I want to share it now is Have you ever noticed when you go to a concert, you feel so connected with everyone at that concert? Like you're all there for a purpose. If you go into the women's bathroom, it's like, okay, let's hurry. We got to get back out before this song comes on. Like it feels so connected. I mean, this, maybe I'm the only person that feels this, but it literally feels so connected. And everybody is like willing to help you. You know, other women are like, oh, you know, you have like something in your hair, or like, oh, the line is over here. I mean, it's a very connected experience. And the last time I was at a concert, I was with one of my daughters, and I was talking to her about it. And I was like, gee, have you ever noticed how it's just like everybody's so connected? You're sharing a joint experience, and it's so cool. And let's just try to have a little bit more of that throughout our day, because the research clearly shows how important connection is. So figure out a way to connect, whether it's going to an experience or an event where you all have something in common, or whether it's talking to a stranger, because you were made for more. There you go. I gave you guys more. Do you want to know a fun fact about all my wealthiest clients, that what they have in common?
Absolutely, yes.
They all own actual gold bars.
Wait, but like actual,
you know,
those giant
bars.
Scrooge McDuck bars?
So they don't, so in real life, and I actually know this, well, I actually know this because I own some gold bars, but I also actually know this because one of my last things that I did for my most favorite client of all times, but he was also the most wealthiest client I had ever represented, is the last thing I did in his divorce was deliver to him his portion of the gold bars that had been in the safety deposit box at the bank. Whoa. And yeah, and so, you know, you always think of gold bars as like on, you know, like what Scrooge had on the cartoons. They don't actually look like that. But it's true. All my wealthiest clients actually own gold bars.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's one of the best investments over time is gold, and that's where Birch Gold comes in, can help you roll over your IRA into gold or silver. Much more about that in the link in our show notes.
A prenuptial agreement, or sometimes called a premarital agreement, is an agreement that two parties enter into before they get married that basically chooses to deviate from state law. It assigns rights and responsibilities regarding assets and debts that are acquired during the marriage. Some common misconceptions about prenups are, one, that they basically doom the marriage to failure, or that it's really planning to divorce, and neither of those things are true. But the real value of a prenup is talking about and creating rules around how the things that you acquire during the marriage are going to be characterized. A prenup can protect things like art collections, real estate portfolios, businesses, all those types of assets. The ideal timeline to get a prenup is not 2 weeks before the wedding. The final version of a prenup has to be presented to the parties 7 days before they actually sign it. So there's like a 7-day waiting period. As soon as you get engaged, you should seek a lawyer's advice and counsel on a prenup and start the process then, because the closer the prenup is signed to the wedding, the more likely that the court is going to think there was some sort of duress involved in that person signing it, and they have to prove that the prenup was signed voluntarily in order for them to be enforced. At Moore Family Law Group, we represent a lot of high-profile people, celebrities, professional athletes, business tycoons. If you already have a lot of assets, or you think you're going to be acquiring a lot of assets during your marriage, we are the best ones to protect that for you and help you make your marriage stronger. Call Moore Family Law Group today.